Well, now take down your fishing pole and meet me at the fishing hole. I can't think of a better way to pass the time of day.
I would like to go fishing and catch a fish stick. That would be convenient. I could easily get a job with Mrs. Paul's.
RodMob. This is The Splash, your Northern California fishing podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Scott.
And I'm Sarah.
And we're coming at you from the RodMob Treehouse here in Road Bike Central, Portola Valley. It's Sunday, November 4th, and this is episode 33 of The Splash, your weekly Northern California fishing podcast.
Well, it's been a busy week. San Francisco won the World Series, the East Coast got hit with a Frankenstorm, and Dungeness crab season started with a bang.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about the first day's report in a bit. But if you're looking to stock up on some crab gear, I talked with Curtis at Fisherman's Warehouse in San Jose this week, and they got some specials on crab rings, cages, snares, and lead core line, and a ton of other crab fishing accessories in stock there. Check out their ad on the back of the latest Fish Sniffer, or look them up online at fishermanswarehouse.com. And here's an update from Corey at Bayside Marine in Santa Cruz.
Hi, this is Corey at Bayside Marine in Santa Cruz, California, and crab season is opening up on November 3rd, and everyone's excited. And we have all sorts of crab information and gear for you if you need. Ready to go McKay crab pots for $230. All you got to do is add bait. And we have a lot of other crab gear for you as well. So come see us and we can help you out. You can find us at 333-Be Like Boy Lake Avenue in Santa Cruz near the Crow's Nest. Or you can call us at 831-475-2173. Our website is www.BaysideMarineSLikeSam, Also have a fish hotline that we keep updated regularly at 831-464-3474. So, hope to see you soon, and thanks.
Before you head out, make sure you're up to speed on all the regulations. You can find all the details on the DFG website. Well, crabbing's not the only thing going on this week, but before we get into all the reports, let's take a look at the news.
Here's Sarah with the latest headlines.
We all watched as Hurricane Sandy hit the East Coast this week. Right now, the local fishing scenes aren't at the forefront of everyone's minds, as the focus is still on basic things like power, food, and shelter. But the Asbury Park Press reported a few days ago that for fishing communities like theirs, the impact Sandy will have on fishing is significant. They're not sure how long it'll take for things to settle down enough for fish to bite again, but more importantly, none of the local party boats will be launching anytime soon. In Asbury Park, New Jersey, their harbor was pretty much destroyed. A local captain said, "I think we're out of business because we have no place to come home. We have no harbor, no place to dock." He doesn't think the boats out of Atlantic Highlands will be fishing anytime before next spring. Winter is typically slower for fishing off New Jersey, though, so if the winter is mild, they're hoping crews should be able to get the docks rebuilt so the local fishing industry is back on its feet for spring. A Massachusetts fisherman found a rare treat in his lobster trap on Halloween, a Halloween-colored 1-pound female lobster. The lobster had an orange side and a black side, with the colors split perfectly down the middle. This coloration is estimated to happen only once in every 50 million lobsters, and the rare lobster is known as a split. The fisherman who caught the lobster was fishing about 20 miles northeast of Boston. The New England Aquarium says that over the past 10 years, splits have been caught in Maine, Rhode Island, and Nova Scotia.
I saw someone posted that and called it a San Francisco Giants lobster.
That's cool. There was a shark attack off the California coast this week. 25-year-old surfer Scott Stevens was out catching waves at Bunkers, a popular surf spot near Humboldt Bay. He was paddling on his stomach when a great white bit and pulled him underwater. Stevens said he opened his eyes underwater and punched the shark on the side of the head until it released him. The shark severed Stevens' leash, but he was able to get back on his board and, with the assistance of a wave, paddle back to shore. He had a bite wound that was approximately 14 inches and was losing a ton of blood. Other surfers acted quickly to try to slow the bleeding and get him to the hospital. Stevens underwent surgery and is recovering well, and he says the attack won't keep him out of the water. Stevens told local Eureka reporters he always knew the risks of going in the ocean and didn't blame the shark for the attack. You're entering into their home every time you go surfing.
Stay on top of the latest fishing action. Subscribe to RodMob Podcasts on iTunes. It's free, and you'll always get the latest episodes.
There was another shark appearance in California this week, but this one was really unexpected. Golfers on the 12th hole of San Juan Hills Golf Club in San Juan Capistrano got a big surprise on Monday when a 2-foot leopard shark dropped out of the sky near the tee box. There was a puncture wound under its dorsal fin and fresh blood. Evidently, a bird had picked it up and lost its grip as it flew over the green. And speaking of unwanted visitors, the San Francisco Chronicle reported on a dive project happening in Lake Tahoe's Emerald Bay with the goal of eliminating invasive, fast-multiplying Asian clams from the lake. The clams were introduced to the lake sometime in the past 10 years, and the Chronicle reports the worry is that the fast-multiplying Asian clams will edge out native animals in the competition for food. Their excretions are known to increase algae blooms along the shore, and their shells could increase the calcium content of the water, increasing the odds of an infestation that officials are trying hard to prevent, that of quagga mussels, fast-spreading, pipe-clogging shellfish that prefer a calcium-rich habitat. 4 divers are working over the next few weeks to place 238 rubber mats over 5 acres of infested lake bottom. This matting is designed to cut off the clam's oxygen supply, and it's the first attempt in the world to smother the non-native shellfish and halt its spread. There are other areas in the lake with higher concentrations of Asian clams, but the research team is using the satellite population in Emerald Bay to test the mats. If they can control the clams in this area, they can move on to other spots.
Follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/TheRodMob.
Well, that's it for the headlines. Now for some tight lines. Here are the latest reports on the best Northern California fishing.
Starting with saltwater. In Eureka, Pacific halibut and rockfish season closed on Wednesday, and this week everyone was gearing up for the Dungeness crab opener. Kenny Priest has some great crabbing tips in this week's Fishing the North Coast. If you're heading offshore, he recommends starting by dropping pots in 120 feet of water, either a mile north or south of the Whistle Buoy. Other top spots are Crab Park at the end of Cannibal Island Road in Lolita, out in front of the PG&E plant in Humboldt Bay, and farther north inside Trinidad Harbor. In Crescent City, the harbor is a good option for small boats, but make sure your pot is clear of the main channel. Boats still found some salmon this week off Fort Bragg, and shore anglers did well targeting perch. In Bodega Bay, albacore hunters bloodied their decks outside of Cordell Banks, and boats had great scores of rockfish and lingcod. The crab opener was a big success. There was great weather, and USA Fishing reported the local campgrounds were full, and hundreds, if not thousands, of sport anglers were enjoying all-you-can-eat crab around the fires Saturday night. The new Sea Angler was fishing out of Point Reyes and had 48 limits of both crabs and rockfish, plus 17 lings to 15 pounds.
Outside the gate, a few salmon were being scratched out, but it's been pretty much all about rockfish this week. Most boats found limits this week off the Marin Coast and out at the islands. All the party boats had easy limits of crab and rockfish yesterday. USA Fishing reports the majority of boats are working their gear between N and W buoy and the North Bar in 20 to 30 fathoms. Outside of Half Moon Bay, the rock fishing is still solid, and we saw reports of Humboldt squid and white sea bass this week. The crab opener was excellent in Half Moon Bay, too. Calm weather, great crabbing. The new Captain Pete had 21 limits of crab. The guys on short few-hour soaks are seeing 5 to 12 crabs per pot. Folks are expecting closer to 20 on longer soaks. The word is that the commercial fleet will start setting gear out in about 10 days, so now's the time to get out there and get on this great crabbing. In Pacifica, striper and perch have been on the bite.
In Santa Cruz, Bayside Marine reports that sea bass continue to bite near Pajaro and near 5 Mile Beach on fresh dead squid. Ed at Capitola Boat and Bait caught his all-time sea bass best this week in Capitola, 55, 64, and 66 pounds. There are some nice halibut being caught near Pajaro in 60 to 80 feet of water, and there are plenty of Humboldt squid in 120 to 150 feet of water in the same area. The rock fishing continued to be wide open up the coast near 4 Mile Beach in Davenport, and crabbing was great yesterday here too, with early limits in 170 to 200 feet of water near 5 Mile, and sand dabs are biting at Pajaro. We also saw some tuna reports this week near Big Sur when the weather cooperated. And in Monterey, Chris's Fishing and Whale Watching had limits of rock cod, 8 lingcod, and 25 Humboldt squid for 26 anglers on the Star of Monterey yesterday, and limits of rock cod and 80 Humboldt squid on the Checkmate. They're out doing a crab combo trip today with a couple of RodMobbers aboard, so we look forward to hearing those reports. In the San Francisco Bay, the striper bite continued to be scattered all around. Some hot spots were up in the Petaluma River near the pump house and off of the Mare Rock Wall. North Bay shark fishing remained good, and sharks were also caught off of the Oakland airport. Some halibut were found around Angel Island and Red Rock.
The Delta is still seeing red-hot striper action. Reports have been great all around. We saw a report that up to 100 stripers were landed at the Antioch Bridge on Monday. We spoke with Delta trolling legend Clive Wands earlier this week, and he's been doing well trolling rattletrap Usuri combos at 13 to 15 feet around Collinsville. On Tuesday, RodMob contributor Scott Feist was out fishing near Pittsburgh and nailed a couple of keeper sturgeon fishing with guide Jay Lopez of Right Hook Sport Fishing. And on Saturday, RodMobber Jonathan Pletus caught and released a nice striper he got on a fish trap outside of Grizzly Island.
Now let's look at the lakes. At Lake Shasta, the Sacramento and McCloud arms are still full of shad, so those are your best bets for bass. We were reading some of the fishing forums and saw some nice reports from Berryessa. Guys have been doing well around the mouth of the Narrow and the main body, trolling at 8 feet on the wire and real deep around Capel Cove. We also hear salmon have been on the surface chasing shad. Guide Ron Gandolfi reported the bass fishing has been outstanding at Lake Oroville. There was also a small coho salmon plant at Lime Saddle Marina last week, so the topwater ripbite bait is expected to dramatically improve.
The staff at Collins Lake says the weather has been cooperating and conditions are prime for some good fall trout fishing. Weekly plants include larger trophy-sized trout, and they'll be planting until Thanksgiving week. The biggest trout of the week was a 13-pound rainbow cut off the beach by David Bunting of Calusa using a Cleo lure. Jimmy Trejo also picked up a 6.5-pound rainbow trolling a moose-luck wobbler in the center of the lake at 30 feet deep. Several trout in the 4 to 5 pound range have been picked up on lures like Castmasters and also bait fishing with power bait and worms. The areas by the dam and the beach have been most active for shore fishermen. In the East Bay, at Lafayette Reservoir, recent trout plants are producing good results for trollers in the south end of the lake, and shore anglers are still scratching out some catfish. At Los Vaqueros Reservoir, the fishing has been good for trout, stripers, and catfish. Last weekend, someone caught an 11.5-pound trout, and a catfish weighing nearly 16 pounds was also caught recently.
We want to hear from you. Got a fishing report, a tip, a review, a comment on the show? Drop us a message on the RodMob hotline. Then listen for it on an upcoming episode. 662-RODMOB-5.
At Lake Del Valle, the staff reports the fish are on the move and the lake level is still dropping. Trout are biting on bucktail panther martins, castmasters, and night crawlers. Smallmouth bass are still hitting the Zara spooks. Largemouth bass are hitting chugger spooks and popper frogs. Striped bass fishing is slow, but when they bite, they're chasing anchovies or swimbait. And catfish are still hitting anchovies, mackerel, and sardines. Trout action is picking up at Lake Chabot. Your best bet is to head for the clearest parts of the lake, which are by the dam and Half Moon Bay area. If you're planning to troll, the water is still pretty warm, so you may want to experiment with different sized weights and drop them lower than you usually would. Usually some of the best lures to troll with are Fire Tiger Rapalas, Castmasters, and Mirror Shads. Some recent Chabot whoppers were a 5-pound trout caught on Saturday by Lauren Lim using a Fire Tiger Rapala over in the area around Coots Landing. Andrew Kowal caught an 8.5-pounder over in the dam area using a Fire Tiger Rapala. And on Monday, Don Bradley caught a 7.7-pound trout over in Indian Cove using rainbow power bait. Recent trout plants at Shadow Cliff are still producing some nice stringers. Fish are active fairly deep around the first dock and the boat ramp.
And in the Motherlode area, at New Melones, Glory Hole Sports reports a good bass bite. The shad are staging in 15 to 30 feet of water on the main lake points and at the mouth of the major creek arms. A lot of the fish are targeting shad as their primary food source. Try using shad patterns, deep diving crankbaits, and deep rib baits to get to the depths they're feeding at. An 18-pound catfish was caught there this week. The catfish seem to be moving shallow and feeding on cloudy, rainy days. The third annual Trout Derby is going on this weekend at Lake Comanche, and we'll have a report and results from Shelley on next week's show. Stephanie at McSwain Reservoir Marina says trout action has been outstanding, especially in the early mornings. If you're bank fishing, head over by brush pile and use salmon eggs, power bait, and rainbow, chartreuse, or orange.
In the Sierras, Max and trout are still being landed at both Lake Tahoe and at Donner Lake. Donner got a trout plant and fishing is good in the West End. And Icehouse Reservoir has had outstanding trout fishing. Folks are catching easy limits of 10 to 13-inch rainbows from a boat or shore. Shore anglers are using power bait and worms near the boat ramp. Trollers are top-lining a dodger, grub, or worm. Western Outdoor News reports that Pyramid Lake guide Joe Mendez says the cutthroat trout bite has been excellent. It went from hot to hotter. With the colder weather, fish were more active on the west side of the lake, making them accessible to trollers with smaller boats. Mendez was catching 28 to 32 fish per day, all 16 to 23 inches, on silver or bronze flatfish, and apex trolled 25 to 35 feet deep at Sandhole and Indian Head. Shore fishermen have been doing well casting spoons at Sandhole, and fly fishing has been good at Indian Head. Bait balls were still showing 8 to 10 feet deep, but we're moving deeper with the colder weather and water temps, still 60 degrees.
Trolling for trout at Silver Lake has been good, and the shore action should improve with this week's trout plant. In the Eastern Sierras, there's one more week of fishing left on the June Lake Loop before the close on November 15th. The bite's great. Big fish have been coming out of Silver Lake. Remember that 18-pound Troutzilla we reported on last week? Plus, there was an 8 to 10-pounder caught last week.
On the rivers, Tony Sepulveda from Greenwater Fishing Adventures posted a North Coast update on Wednesday. Tony says it's transition time on the North Coast, and he's turning his attention toward the Smith River as there's starting to be more regular rainfall. Tony says the Klamath came on strong the past couple weeks, and though a lot of the fish were colored up, the action was fantastic. On the best days, it was one bent rod after the next until everyone's arms were sore. The Trinity steelhead bite was about as good as it gets last week, with big numbers of fish running a respectable 4 to 10 pounds. Most were wild fish, but there were enough clipped ones in the mix to bring a few home for the table. Tony says he didn't spend much time chasing the salmon on the Trinity with all the steelhead around, but the little bit he tried for them, there were plenty of willing biters. Like the Klamath, the fish had color, but the action was fast and furious. RodMobber Saul Galloway kept us posted with real-time reports this week for the Smith River. On Tuesday, Saul had 2 friends fishing there, and the bite was on. They were doing well, lots of bright, shiny salmon, and one was over 40 pounds. The action tapered off on Wednesday, but a few fish were caught upriver from Sandhole. The Smith was forecast to rise to 10 feet on Thursday, and all accounts say there are plenty of big chrome salmon just waiting for more water to push them upriver. Tony Sepulveda says he expects the Smith to fish well for Trophy Kings all the way into early December. The Chetco opened on Wednesday, and the fishing was decent. Kenny Priest reported fish were caught pretty much everywhere, but they thinned out after the first day. On Thursday, Saul Galloway tipped us off that the fish alarm was sounding at Social Security Beach, with everyone there catching big, bright beauties. But the river dropped 5 feet on Thursday night, which put the brakes on the bite, so many folks headed back to the Smith on Friday.
RodMobber Ken Pugh reported in on Wednesday from the Klamath River. Ken says he did well on the Middle Klamath, fishing for steelhead from 3 to 5 pounds, until the rain showed up in full force mid-morning. There's plenty of salmon in the Trinity River right now, and steel fishing is only going to get better as salmon start to thin out. Guide Chris Parsons gave a report on Wednesday saying, the sheer number of salmon in the Trinity is outstanding. The steelhead are mixed in with them, and that can make it tough to get tight. The best patterns are going to be eggs and almost anything that has egg-like colors. Think orange, pinks, and darker reddish pinks. The Pitt River is still fishing well as trout are feeding up for the winter. The Fall River and Hat Creek both closed on November 15th, but fishing's been good, and that shouldn't change between now and the end of the season.
The Sacramento River from Redding to Red Bluff has had great trout fishing lately, and the late fall salmon run is expected to appear very soon. Around Redding, the trout fishing is still excellent. There are reports of folks catching up to 24 good-sized native trout per outing. Confluence Outfitters out of Red Bluff reports the Lower Sac is fishing great. They're putting their clients on lots of 18 to 21 inchers up to 3 pounds. And RodMobber Tony Varela was fly fishing the Lower Sac on Sunday and hit into the hot bite. Tony and crew caught 15 good-sized trout with one steely up to 8 pounds. In the Sacramento area, salmon fishing has really slowed down on the Sacramento River as the action has shifted to the American. A fresh batch of fish did pass through on Thursday, though, and Jonathan Politis reported in on Friday. He and fellow RodMobber Jose Garcia hit the Sac for salmon, and Jonathan says, got a chromer 20 minutes on the water, got another hit and run, and had another good fish on that spit the hook coming into the dock. This was a fresh Chinook that left its scales on the bottom of the boat, looked like someone spilled glitter.
Keep us posted. Share your catch, tips, gear reviews, and more on our Facebook page. Facebook.com/RodMob.
The American River is loaded up with salmon. On Wednesday, the river closed to fishing in the salmon closure area from the USGS gauging cable below the hatchery to the power lines at Ansel Hoffman Park. But we saw a report from guide J.D. Ritchie saying fishing should continue to be good for at least a couple more weeks in the section of the river still open to fishing. There are plenty of fish still coming up the river. And steelhead fishing's been good, with reports of folks catching half-pounders to 20 inches.
There has been great steelhead action in the low-flow section of the Feather River. In USA Fishing reports, stripers are starting to make an appearance in the lower river. The late fall salmon run is yet to start. And on the Yuba River, trout fishing is good, and there's been some reports of steelhead behind the spawning salmon. RodMobber Charles Knott reported in yesterday. He had just gotten back from a quick trip to one of his honey holes in the Yuba River next to Marysville. Charles said, "Good news, a few steelhead are in the river, got a nice 3-pound hatchery male."
The Truckee River is fishing well. Gilligan's Guide Service reported this week that nymphing-wise, using betas, midges, worms, eggs, stones, and some October caddis. Flows are still good, down a bit in the Hirsch and up a bit through Nevada. And in the eastern Sierras, Sierra Drifters Guide Service posted a new report on Thursday. They're having fantastic weather in the Mammoth Lakes and Bishop area, and Tom says this extended period of good weather is keeping the fish on the chew and providing some excellent dry fly opportunities in some locations. The trout fishing has been good on the Owens River with near-perfect conditions. And as a reminder, the general trout season closes in the Sierra on November 15th. The East Walker River, Hot Creek, the Upper and Lower Owens Rivers, and Pleasant Valley Reservoir will remain open with special angling restrictions for each area.
There was a DFG plant on the Carson River this week, and Alpine County had an 1,800-pound plant of 2 to 5-pound trout scheduled. This will be the last plant of the season, and it'll be divided up between the East and West Forks. We're hearing some reports of anglers catching and releasing between 30 to 50 trout per day with fish up to 5 pounds. The action should continue to be good until the November 15th close.
Woo! Fish! Woo! All right!
Catch of the week.
This week, our podcast artwork comes from Tony Varela. Tony got in on some of the excellent trout action on the Lower Sac last weekend and shared some great shots from his time out on the water. Thanks, Tony, for a great report and for posting this week's Catch of the Week.
Now it's time for the poll question.
Last week, we asked about your favorite fish to catch here in Northern California. Here were the results. 40% of you said salmon, 27% said trout, 27% said stripers, and 6% said kokanee.
So there wasn't a single vote for smaller largemouth bass?
No, not this time around.
Huh.
Okay, this week's poll question. What's your take on buying tackle online? Do you stock up online? Do you prefer to support your local shop? Or do you just go with whatever's the best deal for what you need? Well, it may not be as influential as the presidential election, but we still want your vote. Head on over to rodmob.com.
We're getting closer to Thanksgiving, and our Turkey Day giveaway is in full swing. Don't miss your chance to win a cool prize pack full of swag and gear for fishing and hunting from Military Hunting and Fishing, Hot Huntress, Purific Cup, and more. Entering couldn't be easier. Just go to our website and click the Turkey Day giveaway.
Gobble, gobble, gobble turkey from Jive Turkey Gobblers.
Upcoming events you won't want to miss. Here's the RodMob calendar.
November 9th through 17th is the Pogo Striped Bass Derby at the VFW Hall in Antioch. To purchase tickets, contact Steve Martinez at 925-783-8401. November 10th is the 21st annual SIFI Dinner. The event will be held at the Folsom Community Center. Don't be left out on the social event of the year with an evening of fun, huge raffle, live auction, tri-tip dinner, and plenty of friends. Tickets can be purchased online at sifi.org or by calling 209-810-9603. November 11th, salmon season closes from Pigeon Point to Horse Mountain, and the general trout season closes in the Sierra on November 15th. November 17th and 18th is the second annual Striped Bass Rattle Trap Only Catch and Release Derby held by Lauritsen Yacht Harbor in Oakley. And finally, Trout Unlimited's North Bay chapter is looking for volunteers for Trout in the Classroom, a growing program which helps teachers and students learn about trout and salmon. Volunteers are needed for a few hours a week between December and March. For more on the program and how to volunteer, go to www.nbtu.org. For details on these and other upcoming events, check out our events page at rodmob.com.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks to everyone who shared reports. And if you're out on the water this week, don't forget to send your reports to fishon@rodmob.com or post to our Facebook page.
And if you haven't yet, subscribe to us in iTunes. And please leave us a review. If you've got feedback or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. Just shoot us an email at fishon@rodmob.com. Thanks for listening and supporting the Rod Mob.
And a reminder that we've got RodMob t-shirts and decals for sale in our new store. Check it out at rodmob.com/gear. Have a great week, and until next time, keep us posted.
RodMob.